Hi everyone, welcome to the Catalunya virtual studio.
The fact that we shoot in studio doesn't mean that we're not shooting the actual locations. Like we actually shoot a lot of plates outside, 360 plates, and then we map them to the wall.
LED studios are growing in Catalonia, in Spain in general.
What I'm seeing happening here in the past 2 years, I would say, is the creation of a network of studios. So they have different size with different specialities and different technicians behind. And I think that's, for me, major ecosystem of virtual production.
We are in total about 4,000 companies, 37,000 employees, with a total turnover of 7.5 million, which means we have a very solid industry.
Productions come here and adapt their production to this volume. What's great about this is that we can design the LED wall exactly at the size and shape the production needs.
In this case, Catalunya is absolutely privileged, because
So
we have everything
both.
in 1 hour drive.
Everything that's around it, at the end, gives value to that studio.
Because we have this ecosystem. In
Exactly.
fact, we have the companies, we have the talent, creative, technical talent, and we have as well the locations. We have very rich locations.
It starts to be very interesting when it's 2 locations on the same day, because you start saving on transport.
We are implementing a new model of production, and it's the fact that we have to, put a lot of emphasis in pre-production now. It's very nice that you get here and it's working, but it takes time to design. It takes time to create.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Catalunya virtual studio. I'm Viviana Vallvé and I'll be moderating today's podcast, a project launched by Catalan Audiovisual Cluster. I'm a journalist, I'm the founder and CEO of The Creative, which is a creative agency and a production company. This episode of the podcast is all about virtual production studios in Catalonia. Let me introduce you to Mike Blackman, the Managing Director of Integrated Systems Europe, the largest audiovisual and integration systems exhibition in the world. And we asked him if this technology is on the rise globally and how ICEC can help boost this market in Catalonia. Let's see what he has to say about it.
In my opinion, LED studios are growing in Catalonia, in Spain in general. We're seeing more and more productions, virtual productions, and following what happened with the Mandalorian as one of the real starters in creating film in an LED studio. We're seeing more and more productions, advertising, things being created, even in studios here like the Vinya and other TV studios moving towards this direction as well. So it's growing. The quality of screens has made that more and more possible. And the creativity from using virtual production software.
Thank you so much, Mike. And now let's move on with the conversation here in the table. We're joined by Cristina Brandner, manager of the Parc Audiovisual de Catalunya, Demian Sabini, virtual production executive producer at Group Media Pro, and Antoine Bexeler, co-founder and creative director at Appia. Together with Lavinia, they manage Plateau Nou, a virtual studio where we are now recording this podcast. Catalunya is on the path of becoming the virtual production hotspot of Southern Europe. With everything it has to offer, it's quickly turning into a center for virtual studios. This exciting technology is bringing a lot of changes to how things are done, and also it means that we need new kinds of professionals. That's why schools and organizations in Catalonia are offering special courses to train people and get them ready for this growing industry. So, Cristina, let me start with you. What is the current state of the virtual productions in Catalonia?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this panel, which is, I think, a very important topic to discuss today. So, what I think, first of all, let me give you some data about the Catalan industry. I think this is important. So, we are in total about 4,000 companies, over 37,000 employees. With a total turnover of 7.5 million, which means we have a very solid industry.
Big industry.
A big industry and solid industry, really settled, which I think is an important data to give now. And talking about virtual production, which is the question, so as Mike said, I think that Mandalorian, maybe you can correct me, but I think Mandalorian was kind of the green light of the virtual production. And this was in 2019, so now we are from 5 years, that means that the market now is mature, I think. No, so mature means that technology is mature. Of course, it can improve and it will improve all the time. No? Before we were discussing about this, no, but now we can produce. We can produce. Really, really very good. No, so and we do have the studios available for producer. One sample is here in Platono, one is with MediaPro. There are other studios that are being built. In our case, in Parc Audiovisual, we do have a virtual production studio, but devoted to training, to train the new professionals, which is something very important, which is a part very important.
What we were saying at the beginning,
exactly,
that we have to train professionals.
Exactly.
The market being more mature, does it mean that the costs are also more affordable?
You mean by creating a new studio, or you mean
the cost of virtually shooting and doing productions?
Well, maybe it's a question for them. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know.
let me first of all let me ask you how is the virtual production market in Europe?
Yeah, sure. Same. Thank you very much for having me on this panel. It's really nice. So in Europe, it's been changing a lot. Yeah. Okay. So it hasn't been some sort of streamlined integration of this technology. It's been changing since 2019, as Christina mentioned, where it kind of the frenesia started. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm only going to speak from my experience because I think there is no sort of absolute rule about this evolution. But what we've seen in 2019-20, when we started back in Switzerland, it was a private initiative, companies wanting to jump into this new technology and opening various size of studio of this kind, meaning large studios with LED screens. Okay. And you saw the leaders in Europe were London, of course,
yes.
Half Europe, yeah, but London kind
yes.
of brought that onto the continent almost, and then that moved to Germany, France, and Spain as well.
Okay.
Yeah. What we've seen, and I think that's why it's very interesting today in Catalonia, is that first, for many years, 4 years, the past 4 years, it was private initiative.
Yes.
And there was a great studio there and a few big studios, and they were competing to get the projects, more or less. What I'm seeing happening here in the past 2 years, I would say, is the creation of a network of studios that don't necessarily compete for the same client.
Okay.
Why? Because they are not the same kind of studios.
Uh-huh.
So they have different size with different specialities and different technicians behind.
Okay.
And I think that's, for me, what I would agree, a mature ecosystem of production, of virtual production.
So that means that there are very different productions. Exactly. Of productions.
Yes, absolutely. In our case, again, experience, we can divide them in 3 camps. Yeah, we have fiction, what is called, so that's movies and series. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they occupy a third of our clients. Okay. Yeah? Then we have advertising, another third, and then we have corporate communication, whether it's live or pre-recorded. That's the third. Yeah. Okay. Then there are exceptions for music clips and artistic things, but we can divide them in 3 camps.
All right.
And each of these camps have very different necessities, technically and size-wise.
Mm-hmm. And the growing size of the market, is it because it's much more cost-effective and because you can do things that you cannot do otherwise?
It's for multiple reasons. So I think there is never only one reason. One is cost, for sure.
Yes.
I can say from experience, the studio we were operating in Switzerland 5 years ago cost 4 times what it costs to do it here today.
Wow.
Okay. So it is coming down. It is still on the upper level of prices because this technology requires that. But I think more important is the technicians that are now trained to operate all of this. Yeah? So I think one thing is to buy this technology. That depends on your economical power. Another thing is your capacity to operate all of that. And that means people that are devoted to this technology and suffering and spending nights and nights. Damien knows about it. Night and nights was figuring out how all of this works. And I think the maturity of the market is more linked to the capacity of the technicians than the quality of the technology we are using.
Okay,
but one thing. Let me say one thing. But I think it's important to say. But I think that the first claim for the producer to produce with LED screens is more cost effective.
Absolutely,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. This is the first claim.
This is why we're doing this.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. In comparison to a so-called traditional shoot.
Exactly.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Well, there's both things. One, it's getting more most cost effective,
Clar.
and second, compared to a normal production, is much most cost effective.
Okay, then it's true that it's not so easy. No, then there are some problems, and maybe Demian will explain.
Demian illustrate us.
But exactly.
So, have you spent lots of nights without sleeping, getting more and more professional about that?
More than I'd like to admit. Yes. Certainly, yeah. So just in the line that we're speaking, I think we're not quite there where it's actually more cost effective to shoot. It's not the general rule. You get that in certain scenarios.
Okay.
I think I've seen actually this in our own past experience in the past few months. It's the creative side. In many cases, that's actually, having, directors are actually fighting
to do it.
Yes.
Because you can go much farther.
Yes, you can go farther, and you have more control, and you can, you can really focus on. There are certain things that are really hard to shoot on location.
Yes,
and you have, the directors see that they can actually focus on working with the actors, rather than waiting for a cloud to pass by, or for a sound to stop doing whatever it's doing, or for getting everybody ready again and traveling to a different place. These kinds of things are really starting to make a difference. I think the cost effective is going to get there once this technology is highly democratized.
Okay,
we're working on that, and we have to do a lot of work still, but we're there. We're on track.
Okay, what about let me ask you, what about the magic? Because the magic of shooting up in a hill, in a mountain, with all the technical stuff, and so reduced to shooting in a studio. Can you feel it? Can the audience feel it somehow?
Oh, I think you can. I even think the actual, creative crews are feeling the magic of seeing things that they wouldn't be seeing otherwise, like particularly, magical worlds, different worlds, or actually faraway worlds. Because, honestly, you have to go shoot in Alaska under freezing temperature. It's not that fascinating all the time.
I know.
So
for sure not.
There's difference of opinions on that. I think, fiction people are very aware of this because, they usually have to travel for long periods, and but like ad agencies are not so happy because they tend to like their traveling around. And so I don't know. There's a little bit of disparity of opinions on that.
But the reality is the same. So you get the same feel of reality. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's very well. That's one of the things that really push this thing forward. You get to see things that only happened in post production.
Yeah.
And now you're there seeing this magic happen.
Yes.
That's why actually LED production is called in-camera VFX. That's a very, Americans are really good at minting terms, and that's saying that we're seeing visual effects through the camera live. And I think that's very exhilarating for all the crew, And
also the comparison is not so much as on location versus LED screen. There is something in between, which was the green screen. Yeah, so a lot of the scenes is not. I think we've deserted real locations for many scenes a while ago, and actually it's a way of bringing back that context, but in the comfort of the studio.
Exactly.
So it's actually, I think, trying to merge the quality of both worlds.
Exactly. I'm thinking the whole time about the last Bayona's movie. How was it called? I don't
Society
remember.
of the Snow.
Society of the Snow. Exactly.
Yes.
Which I've learned. I've read a lot about it and how they suffered. Lots of parts, I think they were done virtually, but lots of them that they were real. No? So it's about getting also things done easier, no? Somehow.
Sure. I mean, I think they actually shot. Well, I think that's what's most efficient, and they shot on location what really had a lot of interaction with the actual environment. Wider shots, and you can't reproduce certain things without actually going crazy and building trees inside a studio. But then all the drama and the close-ups and all that stuff that requires hours of takes and whatnot. Then they shot comfortably in a controlled environment, and that's I think that's where we're going in general. And if you're smart about it, it actually works.
And I think this production is, of course, one of the top ones this year, but it's a great example in the end of what the audiovisual world has been doing for decades, which is mixing different techniques to achieve a specific result. So we are, at least on our end, never trying to sell the idea that everything can be produced on LED. That's really not attractive, actually. I think you really need to find the mix, and I think it's an industry that has been great at inventing tricks to find specific effects. And and again, bringing us to the Catalonian territory, I think that's what it has, is that we had productions here that would shoot here on one day, and the day after they're in the mountains shooting the same car advertising. So I think what we are really looking at is the location, the geographical location of the studio and what's around it. And everything that's around it at the end gives value to that studio. More than the only thing that's in it.
I think because we have this ecosystem, no? In fact, we have the companies, we have the talent, creative, technical talent, and we have as well the locations. We have very rich locations, which are part of the production too. So we cannot dismiss now all the rich locations we have, which complement, of course, the productions in a studio.
Car advertising was famous in Barcelona because you could shoot next to the beach in the morning, in the mountain, in the snow at night. Which is
in 1 hour, in 1 hour distance.
On Mars with an LED in between, and that's what you want.
It's
exactly.
so funny now. The fact that this is kind of interesting to mention. The fact that we shoot in studio doesn't mean that we're not shooting the actual locations. Like we actually shoot a lot of plates outside, 360 plates, and then we map them to the wall, and it actually feels like, well, kind of like what Bayona did with the snow. They took plates of the actual real locations and they reproduced them. So, we can still do that. We do that a lot.
Yes. And I think in this case, Catalunya is absolutely privileged, no? Because we have everything in 1 hour drive, no? We have the Pyrenees, we have the sea with different kind of beaches. So we have kind of everything, no? In our territory, in our region.
So we're talking how those two worlds can perfectly coexist. No?
Totally.
So it's about this. Antoine, what kind of professions do you have working? So we've got designers.
Yeah, so there are 3 profiles that are key to this. One is a media operator. It's a person that's over there behind that right now actually is playing all of this on the LED screen. Yeah, it's slightly more complex than pushing a few buttons. Right?
Yes.
So, but it's sending content to that LED screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we have next to that person somebody that operates CGI environments. These are digital 3-dimensional environments. So that's a lot more complex, but it allows us to design tailor-made environments. For example, they tell us we need to go to Iceland, but we don't have money to go to Iceland.
Yes.
So we create a fake Iceland in the computer and we put it on the screen.
Yes.
And then we have a third role, which is a virtual production supervisor. That's a person that doesn't touch keyboards, but he's in the studio making sure that the communication between the traditional production team, the DOP, the directors, the gaffer, and all these people understand what's happening here.
Okay.
So we have to remind that all of this is new for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah? And so we cannot expect that an entire industry will understand the logic of this overnight. No, this is a slow process, and the role of the virtual production supervisor is that. Is actually to translate what they need in their terms to these new technicians that don't come from the audiovisual industry. So these are the 3 new profiles that we need to operate a studio like this.
That again work together with the traditional team of
absolutely.
So they work together in a...
Nobody loses their job, and we need everybody on set as in any other production. I used to say to all our clients on day one, this is an add-on to whatever you know. Don't think that this is going to remove anything. Sometimes there's speculation, this is great, I don't need to do a physical set, I don't need lights. Yes, you do need physical set, you do need light.
Yes.
It's an add-on, but it allows you to maybe shoot more shots in the same amount of time. And there is the economical gain. But it's not in removing stuff or material from the production.
All right, great. Demian, tell us about your projects. What kind of projects are you working on?
Yes, our studio is mostly fed by advertising and fiction projects. We do every once in a while get a corporate size project, but we're very focused on we're having to sort of lecture the actual industry in what this is. So we're gaining a lot of commercials and a lot of fiction. That's mostly our main target, I guess we can say, at Group Media Pro.
And what do people come looking for? What do they want?
What do they want?
Yes. What do they expect from those shootings?
Managing expectations is...
It's another job. It's a job,
It's actually a very, very, very big part of what we have to deal with, because we do have to... Well, they expect magic. I think this is very flashy technology.
Totally.
It's very new, and it's so they expect that things kind of happen up just by flickering your fingers. That's, so we have to kind of try to, mellow down those expectations and, tell them what can be done, what cannot be done, what should be done, what shouldn't. Mostly, a lot of people are wanting to shoot car shots right now.
Really, yeah?
Yes, that's kind of,
Yes.
that's kind of the
big thing.
The big thing, yeah. Because, it's understandable, shooting camera shots on location is long and tiresome, and it's, very...
I know.
Everything is, quite dreadful. Particularly for the creative team,
Totally.
director and actors are really...
It's exhausting.
It's
It's
exhausting,
exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the main things. They wanna feel that this is, suddenly a different experience. And well, then on top of that, we try to then show them how many other things they could be doing. Yeah.
How's the process of working?
Well, usually we have, they have their scripts. What we try to do is to, really analyze their project, read their scripts, make a breakdown of what we think could be, supported by virtual production. But then this is, this needs to be quite detailed because, then it depends. We usually try to work out a storyboard as well.
Okay.
And we work hand in hand with director, DOPs, art direction, so that they understand what actually could be happening there. Advertising agencies bring their creative briefs,
yes.
and, scripts and storyboards, and
yes.
then in fiction we actually have to read them because many times they call you, I want to do car shots, and you're like, let me read the script,
yes.
see if we can pull something else
yes.
off. And usually it's very little, but more and more we're like, I just had a session yesterday, and we were talking about shooting 90% of a series.
Wow!
In the studio now.
90%.
I'm not sure it'll get to the 90, but we're
wow.
pretty. Maybe it'll be around 70% in the end. That's pretty. It's because it has a lot of locations and a low
wow.
budget. So the director is willing to adapt some of his ideas to actually be able to shoot like that.
Do you think that, like in some time from now, we're gonna look like behind and see how come we were going out and shooting these scenes?
Yeah.
It's already happening.
I've made that. No, it's not already happening, but I've made that joke several times. It's like,
yes.
now we say, you remember when we used to shoot 35mm
totally.
film, and that was like
totally.
not so long ago.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think in a few years, maybe 10 or I don't know, we'll be like, oh man. I always get with our kids are gonna tell you, you guys shot on location. Wow, they're gonna actually laugh at us.
They might laugh at you for shooting on LED because there might be something else.
Probably. I think with AI coming out, they're going to laugh at us that we're shooting at all.
Can we talk about numbers? So can we compare? Like, what would a usual production of a car spot cost done like in a normal production, a conventional production, and one in a virtual studio?
We've done the exercise. If you want, I can. Yeah,
there is. I don't think there's a general standard for that because
it's very
variable on many.
So everybody wants to know that, and
yes.
Damien is right. There is no absolute answer, so I cannot tell you this is 40% cheaper. Yeah, but we did it with a practical case. So the idea was to take advertising that had been shot on real location, and we worked with a producer who produced that advertising. Yeah, it was in a bakery in Madrid, and we said, let's now do the exercise if we were to produce it here. So we took the same budget sheet, the same Excel, and we went through line by line, removing what could be saved and adding what needed to be added here. And the conclusion is simple. When it's only one location, in that case it was a bakery, price are equal.
Equal, eh? Yeah. Okay.
So on one location for advertising, I'm speaking, often, this could vary, but often I tell our clients, you could really go there, whether it's an apartment, a villa, or a bakery. It starts to be very interesting when it's two locations on the same day, because you start saving on transport. So moving all these trucks and all these people from the bakery to a flat, then in one day shoot, that's difficult to organize. Yeah? And a lot of money is going in that transport. Yeah? And so here we could go from the bakery to the flat in one click. So we did advertising where it's 7 locations in one day. Yes. And there's no doubt that we are way cheaper. Even more so because
How much cheaper?
This you divide at least, but at least by 2 the prices, but more interesting than that is that there is no option to do it otherwise, because half of these locations are fictional. So it happens a lot to us. It's not so much to save a few percentage here and there, it's that these ideas that they have are suddenly only possible using this. Of course, there's other methods, full CGI and green screen, etc., but a lot of our projects come from there. And that's why when you ask Damien on what clients are looking for, it always starts with price and availability of the studio, but deep down, I think it's a lot of advice, because I think the producers who basically are hiring us, our clients are the producers, they've never used this. So a lot of time what the first question is, what can I do? How does it work? And so we spend a lot of hours, which is quite fun, I have to say, explaining what this can do. And I think advice, and I think often the conclusion is, maybe you don't need to shoot in my studio, maybe we can go and shoot it in another studio.
Yes.
Or maybe we can build a studio just for that project, which is what we call a pop-up volume.
Yes.
So it's important to notice that there's 2 kinds of virtual production studios. We have this kind, which is permanently installed here.
Yes.
So it's always working. Every morning we turn it on.
Yes.
And productions come here and adapt their production to this volume.
Yes.
The alternative is that we go in a studio, maybe in Parco de Real de
We have
Terraza.
done this, in fact.
Exactly.
We have done this,
And you build it there.
Yeah, it's a pop-up model.
It's a
no?
pop-up
it's a pop-up.
module. What's great about this is that we can design the LED wall exactly at the size and shape the production needs.
Okay.
So the price is slightly higher, but a lot of production can permit
But
it.
it's tailor-made.
It's tailor-made.
It's tailor-made.
And so,
It depends on the production, no? It's worth to build it or not.
Exactly.
In fact, we have done a movie, a complete movie, 100% in virtual production with a virtual screen.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say is that often from Catalunya, well, all the experts that live and work here can go in Madrid and start shooting in Madrid,
Yes.
or we went to Alicante to do it in Ciudad de la Luz last month. So I think it's important to see that it's kind of a fixed installation, but there is a mobile version of it.
But my question is, do the screens differ a lot to do something that is tailor-made?
No, what would change is the size and the shape. So whether we make them curve or flat or taller or longer.
Okay, but then you have to build them, or you have to build them from scratch.
Yeah, but that's a Lego. They are tiles. They are 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. They come in fly case. And then LED screens are not new. What's new is virtual production, but LED screens have been around for decades. There's tons of great technicians and engineers that know how to deal with that. And they can build massive walls in a few hours. It's really impressive.
Quite impressive, yeah.
No. Our job is to connect the LED to the computers, to the camera. And these 3 components need to work together as a single entity. That's virtual production.
And this is not so long, no? It doesn't take so long. So the moment you arrive to a studio...
No, that's fairly... Every day it's faster because we've done it more times, essentially.
Yes.
So 6 years ago, when we did it for the first time, it took many hours, but now it's really quick. We did a job in Alicante from our Barcelona team, and we've built the wall on day 1. We set it up the same afternoon, and the day after we were doing pre-light.
You were shooting.
So it's quite quick.
It's quick.
Now it's for 2 days, maximum 3 days.
In 2 days we can operate a relatively large volume.
What does Catalunya have everything that it needs to have to become this hotspot that we're talking about, as virtual shooting concerns? Yes?
Oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely, yeah. We have the infrastructure, we have the talent, and we
have enough talent?
The world doesn't have enough talent right now.
Maybe here we have a challenge, I think, no?
Everybody has this challenge. I mean, even in the US, which is kind of the hottest spots with Hollywood and all. I mean, this is, but it's natural. It's a very new thing, and it's not that many of us that have actually to make life-changing choices to actually have countless sleepless nights.
What are the next big challenges that we face? Who wants to start?
No, I'm happy to answer. Yes. I think for me, because it's my job, so I'm not a technician in the studio operating all this. It's more communication with client and production and explaining what this can do for them, what problems it can solve and what solution it can bring. I think it's not a challenge, but it's a slow process that we've been doing for 6 years. It's explaining on a daily basis to the professionals in Catalunya in this case, what this can do for them.
Yes.
And what I'm trying to say, the challenge for me is the implementation of this technology in existing workflows. Because we should never forget that this changes the workflows, the ways that people are used to work.
Yes.
And some people are willing to do that, some others a bit less, and that's fine. Our job is to help them do that change when necessary.
But it sounds pretty convincing. I mean, me as a client, no? Having to send the team over to Mexico, do 25 locations, this compared to coming to a studio 2 days and getting the things done.
And it is. I think you're right that the feeling is to be convinced really quickly, but then we get into the nitty-gritty of actually doing it. And of course, that's more tedious and more difficult, but that's normal. Everything in life is like
of
this.
Course.
But I think the original idea and belief that I could do that, is that possible? And the answer is often yes. Then it's really great. And then we start a very constructive discussion with that production and the entire production team.
And do you think, I take your role now, I make a question.
Please, let's do this.
But do you think it's different with the international producer, that they already have this expertise, in doing maybe some virtual production, a difference with our local producers?
No, to be honest, I've shot more with local producers that have repeated working with us than with international one. What I'm trying to say is that we've done a few international ones last year, and none of the people in the team had shot on LED screen. So it's not because it's international they've shot more. I think still in the market it occupies a small percentage of production, LED production still. And I think that's great, because there's a huge margin for growth.
Course,
absolutely.
I would say it's clearly the future or the present.
And that's why we are all discussing this, is because this margin is still there. So
and that's why you all have companies on that.
Exactly. So I see the same level of knowledge, whether it's local or international. But what's great of having a permanent studio, whether it's this one or at Media Pro or potentially a pop-up with you, is that our client can repeat. And so the second time it's faster. And the second time we achieve something more complex that we didn't dare to do the first time. And then we start building a relationship, which in the end means building an ecosystem of professionals that work together. And that's the only objective here. We are one more tool among the existing tools.
More challenges.
Well, I think in the line of what you were talking, I think it's very important to convey that we are implementing a new model of production, a new paradigm, and this is kind of disrupting processes that they've been doing for the past maybe half a century, and it's the fact that we have to put a lot of emphasis in pre-production now, because it's very nice that you get here and it's working, but it takes time to design, it takes time to create, and that's particularly in the commercial advertising area of the market, it's difficult, because usually it's like, okay, here's the brief, let's get a storyboard, we're shooting tomorrow. Wait,
we're shooting yesterday.
And suddenly you're telling, okay, we need 3 weeks to model the texture, to create a 3D, and then we need to be sure that it works here in real time, and this is something that is going to take a while, because it's a big shift.
It totally
it's
is.
A big
it's
shift.
Much more pre-production than production or post-production. It's almost the work comes before.
Exactly. This is a big difference in the paradigm of production, and this it's part of the things that we have to try to push, so make sure that they understand. We have to kind of set red flags, like if you didn't green light the the 3D model by this date, we can't light it, and if we can't light it, we can't shoot it. But the creatives, they suddenly pop up.
Of course,
I want to change this. I want to change that. So this is challenging. It's challenging in a way.
So you've got a little to how do you say?
Improvise a little bit.
Yes.
Yes, we have to. I think you can probably more than we can improvise more than we can tell our clients, No, because you say, we have some margin, but then they think, okay, I'm going to get there. So right now we have to be very, because they really don't understand many of the things that we think they understood. This is something I run into a lot. They think this is just magic. I keep repeating, it's not magic. It's really cool, but it's not magic. We have to prepare it. In a way, it's really going, it's very, there's this layer of innovation and technology technology, but in a way, it's really going back to the beginning of filmmaking, where everything happened in a studio.
Totally.
So everything was totally prepared. They used to build physical sets for everything. And if the set wasn't built, they couldn't shoot farther away because there wasn't any set. So in a way, we're in the same scenario.
Back to the origin.
It's just that it's CG and virtual, and digital. But so in a way, it's.
I have the feeling that you have much more control.
Well, when it works.
Sure.
Great.
But we do have we have a lot of control over the weather, the light. That's the idea that we now have.
And of course there is challenges, but there's an enormous opportunity, which is probably the elephant in the room of artificial intelligence. Sorry, which I think is going to help our convincing of client, because a challenge today is the creation of content for the LED screens. So it's not so much the filming on LED screen, because the professionals are great at it and they can do it.
Exactly.
But what's actually quite difficult is to create content that can go on these LEDs, because they are extra large resolutions. So it's not the typical 4K, 6K. We are speaking 18K, 24K. So it's really, really large files. And to create that is time and money. As everything. So I think there are now tools, AI tools, that allow us to create really good quality content much faster and therefore much cheaper. So I think there's an enormous opportunity there. Of course, there's risk, as in all industries with those tools, but in our case, I think it's mostly positive.
Big opportunity. I see brightest future there.
In the end, it's the capacity to offer clients affordable solutions with really great results. And I think
going a bit back to the commercial that you said before, I agree. Sometimes it's very difficult to work with them because they want everything for yesterday. This is like this, and then it's difficult for to make them understand that this process of pre-production has to be a bit longer. No, but on the other hand, at least it's our experience. The people doing, or the production companies doing commercials, they are always a bit ahead in technology. In being more brave, in testing new things. Which is the positive side of our industry, which is quite strong as well, very solid industry, the commercial production side in Catalonia. Totally. I think this is kind of the positive side. I agree with you in this case. They're trying. They always try. They always want to test. No, absolutely.
But definitely. I mean, we wouldn't be here otherwise. But they like to be brave.
Exactly.
You have to.
Christina, any other challenge that you see?
Well, I think that we have to have more studios, More studios, virtual studios. So I think there's always a difference by having a studio that's permanently built versus having the capacity to offer that service. And I think a lot of people are capable of offering that service, although they don't own a studio. So I think we need to distinguish. And for me, that's the key strength of Catalonia today, is that capacity to have everything.
Yes.
Permanent studio of different sizes with capable team behind. Great cinematic studio where we can build LEDs. Other companies that can offer services. And I think that's really what we need to be fighting for, is that ecosystem of all the options, because then we can answer all the requests from our clients.
Of course. Let me ask you a question. How busy is the studio? How often do you shoot?
So we shoot around 4 projects a month.
Okay.
Of course, we have months with no projects and then others with more, but on average it's that. And very different kind of projects, as I said, from fiction to advertising to more corporates.
Any other more questions? I could be here asking and asking, you see. So I don't know how we're doing with time. Are we all right? We're done? Okay. Yes, we're okay? Okay, so anything else you want to say? No,
I think
come to produce. Come produce to Catalunya.
Well, I have a couple of projects that I'm already thinking. So
that's a message.
Yeah, totally. That's the message. Yeah, and it's really has the potential to become this hotspot that we
have everything.
Great. So a huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this very first podcast about virtual production in Catalunya. It's evident from our conversation that Catalunya is heading in the right direction, and we hope that this will attract many more production companies and businesses to the area. A special thanks to all of you. Thank you for being here. It's been great. You've been explaining very, very good your projects. This podcast is launched by Catalan Audiovisual Cluster and the Institut Català de les Indústries Culturals, l'ICEC. So don't miss our upcoming episodes. Goodbye and thanks a lot.